Gentlemen, we have called you together to inform you that we are going to overthrow the United States government. Do you still think that jet fuel brought down the World Trade Center? Does anybody else see a problem here? If the government has nothing to hide, why are they so afraid to answer?
Like me, some of you might be in the final year of your last term, working as hard as you can to get as much done as possible for the folks that you represent. Fixing roads, educating our children, helping people retrain, appointing judges, the usual stuff. Appointing judges, the usual stuff. Appointing judges, the usual stuff.
There was a renaissance starting in about 1500 in Europe that was unseating the Catholic Church's power and the nobility's power, who ran monopolies and wouldn't let anybody basically be a cobbler who made shoes or anything else seen as industrial unless you were given a certification license by the nobility. And that caused the Dark Ages because they didn't want any competition. The Dark Ages from about 410 all the way up till about 1500, more than 1,000 years. You can also call it the Middle Ages, a shorter period in there. And if you understand this, you understand the entire system of the battle in the West for the future. The Roman Empire falls. Later, the Byzantine Empire falls to the Muslims in Constantinople. Rome almost falls in the 800s. There are crusades out of France and England led by the Norse, the Vikings, who had conquered England and France. The Norse, who also founded Russia, crush the invaders. In 6 different major invasions, killing millions on both sides. Almost depopulating the Middle East and areas of Europe. A death battle. By the 1400s, people are sick of the tyranny of the monopolies of the nobility and the church, and they begin to use what's left of ancient masonry and ancient pre-Christian secret societies that I would not call satanic. Definitely occultic and hidden. To try to form a system to challenge the establishment and bring in a new enlightenment. They team up with the Rosicrucians, an ancient Christian sect predating Roman Catholicism and the Orthodox Church both. But they were mystics. Those groups merge, and from the middle of the 1400s to the 1760s, they had overthrown the real power of the monarchies and started the Reformation and had driven a tyrannical form of Catholicism out of much of Europe. Incredible prosperity was booming. Monopolies were being broken. Power of the people under different acts like Magna Carta expanding through were empowering the people. Comparatively, none of it was perfect. Both sides had problems. Both sides began to infiltrate each other. I'm going to skip this network break. This is so important. Christians and Masons that actually followed Christ by that point, Christian Masons, launched their operations in the colonies and believed they were finally going to have a truly free country to empower humanity. And the goal was to end slavery, empower women. It had to be done in phases. They launched the entire operation that was Francis Bacon's plan, the New Atlantis. They defeat the British Empire that no one had ever stopped. Working with the French that had launched their own plan, The problem was the German Illuminati, led by Adam Weishaupt, a Jesuit, had launched a counter-revolution secretly in the 1760s. And when he saw the 1776 revolution launched, he went operational with their counterfeit 1776. I know this from George Washington. He wrote a bunch of letters on it, but it's also in the histories. So you got George Washington in the West battling the head of the Illuminati, a Satanist, in the East. Classic battle. And they killed him. They poisoned him. They bled him to death. He was poisoned. They came in. They bled him to death. They killed George Washington. He was getting ready to come back into politics and face them. They killed him. And so there's been a battle between the German, and they're not German, but it's German-based, Bavarian Illuminati and the Western New Atlantis Renaissance group, which is the real Illuminati. They never called themselves that. They said, we're the Enlightenment. So the Illuminati said, oh, we're the light. They launched their counterfeit populist operation. They come in and they infiltrate. You can read Weishaupt's writings because one of his letter carriers got struck down with a big manual. They had copies of it to be given to other members in France. He got struck by lightning. This is an Encyclopedia Britannica, by the way. This is not my opinion. He got struck down. And again, I'm an expert on this. Discovery Channel, History Channel, interview me. I mean, I know what I'm talking about. I know the stuff 33rd degree Masons know, okay? And I learned it from research and historical information. It's all hidden right there. And so what happened is this group branded itself, and Weishaupt said, we'll take over the hunting societies and lodges for men that like to hunt, like the company of, guys sitting around drinking beer, the deer hunters. We will take over the reading societies and the literature societies and the music societies, and then we will take over the sexual secret societies. Because a lot of folks wanted to be able to have sex with more than one person, or maybe they were gay or whatever, so there were sexual secret societies. And he said, we'll claim that we support all of these and that we're the original progenitors of these, and we'll claim that we're the Rosicrucians and the Christians and the Merovingians and all of it. And then our plan is total dominance and control to get rid of the church and to get rid of Christianity and get rid of the Muslims as well and set ourselves up as absolute Luciferians over the world. So when you read about Justice Scalia dying and there's a pillow over his head and they got private jets at the airport, but he's not put on those, that, by the way, he flew in on. That's now confirmed. And then they drive him to another town and they act all suspicious and they change their stories. Obviously, something was being covered up. Now, I was saying 98% chance they killed him before because of all the suspiciousness and the behavior. Now it's a 90% chance somebody killed him, maybe less, because it could have been they were involved in a bunch of rituals. Who knows who was out there? They don't want this to come out. They wanted to clean it up. That place looks like something out of The Shining, as our crew said, not just Day of the Dead stuff, which isn't satanic. It's about celebrating your ancestors. I've looked at it. November 30th, it's non-Halloween, nothing to do with it. Some of the occultists have jumped on the bandwagon, but there were sculptures there we're going to be showing later for TV viewers and radio listeners that aren't just, Mexican mask or voodoo mask. Some of it is occultic, but actual sculptures of Satanism and children being sacrificed. So the bottom of the next hour, we're going to get to that in detail. But I want to be clear. I'm not saying Scalia was part of a satanic order. But they're now being forced in the Washington Post to go, okay, there was a secret society meeting. It's a Christian Catholic society of hunters that was around for 300 plus years. And the Nazis destroyed it because they wouldn't make Hermann Goering the head of it, who was a big huntsman. And they dumb it all down. And now we're just admitting it. Then they go to say it was reconstituted in the 1960s at Bohemian Grove, north of San Francisco. So then you have to have the whole history of that. I'm the guy that snuck in successfully, infiltrated, got the only footage out. Everybody else has been arrested or imprisoned. I was able to do it by the grace of God. It itself is a German death cult Illuminati. So is Skull&Bones 1832. And a president, Taft, a member of Skull&Bones on the East Coast, founded by the Bavarian Illuminati, that's on record, in 1832 in the U.S., 50-something years after it was founded in Germany, Lodge 322. By the 70s was already traveling there before he was president and taking over the Bohemian Grove that was a writers club and a party club to bring prostitutes to, basically, female prostitutes that Mark Twain and others attended. They kicked them all out, took it over by the 1900s, and presidents began traveling there, and they brought up Bavarian Illuminati rituals there. Now, we have this from Helmut Schmidt, former German chancellor, author of Men and Powers of Political Retrospective. He writes about it. He goes, we have our own groves. We do our own Illuminati rituals. This is a public book. He goes, more gets done at Bohemian Grove than the Trilateral Commission and the CFR and our own Bavarian groves where we do rituals. He goes, it's the most important grove in the world. And in my film, I have the book. I open it. I show screenshots, and I show the text. In my film, Dark Secrets Inside Bohemian Grove, and part 2 of that is The Order of Death. They're both free online at YouTube. You can buy them in DVD and higher res at InfoWarsStore.com. But I digress. And we'll have some B-roll from my films later in the next hour. This will be a day long remembered. Now, Bohemian Grove is founded by the Illuminati. So is Skull&Bones. Then it founds other chapters under it at a Southwest Texas, on the border, 30,000-acre ranch with a black ops commander connected to Iran-Contra, who gets presidential awards from Obama, and Scalia dies there with 2 private wide-body jets. One of them he flew in on with his best friend, and he's not put on that and flown back to D.C. that takes 3 hours. He's driven 3.5 hours to El Paso. We knew there was a cover-up. And they may have covered up the circumstances because it was Valentine's Day and Mr. Scalia wasn't with his wife. He was out in the middle of nowhere, 100 miles from any town. Now, I don't know what went on, but I know what goes on at Bohemian Grove that Scalia has attended. And it's in my films. And it's what Wayne Madsen hinted at and got into. And that is all men, massively gay overtones, but a lot of the men are not bisexual or homosexual. And then in town, there are hotels and a golf course where it's chock full of hundreds of the top prostitutes, female, of the world that arrive. And this has been in Time Magazine, Newsweek, you name it, articles about it. And when I snuck in there 16 years ago, I was pretty good looking, and I now realize why I was able to get in. Mike Hansen was a good-looking fellow as well. You can see in the footage. And we were getting whistled at by people. We had to hide out basically under a building until dark because guys were coming up trying to grab our butts. And I'm talking about billionaires, folks. There's only like 1,000, 1,500, members tops. They can each have one guest. I'm not saying Clint Eastwood goes there and he's a bad guy. Most people going there are not bad. They have amazing music, food, all of it, over 100 camps inside. It's inside a gorge on the Russian River. It's beautiful. One of the prettiest places in the world. Looks like Bavaria. And looks like the Black Forest. And that's the outer room to be invited to that. And then you get into the deeper Illuminati if you get vetted and if they like you. It is a way to get to know you socially and let your hair down. And again, it's in my films that break all of it down in great detail. So Scalia spent his last hours with members of his secretive society of elite hunters. That's how they spin it. They claim it's a order of St. Hubertus, founded more than 300 years ago in Germany and Austria. And reportedly Poindexter is a member of it, and he's at the table surrounded by all this occultic regalia. Scalia is an officer of it, and this is a dead society destroyed by the Nazis that's resurrected at the Bavarian spinoff in Northern California, Bohemian Grove. Now, I told you about the Order of Death, a very important 800-page book that I've read twice, written by Heinz, I think Hubert's the name. Funny, it's Hubertus is the saint. And I read it in other historical books, but this was from declassified documents. The Nazis were getting rid of the old Illuminati because they didn't want anything that stood in their way. And so, because he wouldn't, the leader of it wouldn't basically put Hermann Goering, head of the German Luftwaffe, Hitler's left-hand man, in charge of it. They killed the leader of the order, and that's in the Washington Post and in the Daily Mail, because they wouldn't let them take it over. And that's in order of the death said that they were taking out the different Illuminati spinoff groups, the Masonic groups, all of them that didn't fully turn over their entire secret organization to the Nazis. So people like to make these jokes. Oh, Jones says German death cults run it all. Germans, you know, Illuminati. Well, no, it started there, but it's a worldwide system of control, and that's what it is. So who could make this up that we'd have 5 reporters down there showing all the occultic iconography? Who could make this up that I'm in the middle of Bohemian Grove and that Joe Biggs tweeted out and put on his Instagram? We're going to show it later. We're going to line all this stuff up and just show it all to you. Saying this is like Bohemian Grove 2.0. Well, it turns out it is the Texas Bohemian Grove. And they've got other ones around the country as well. These are real Illuminati chapters. And strangely enough, you know, I wasn't invited into chapters like these that were low level or a bunch of drug heads acting like Satanists. When I was a teenager, I was actually invited in to the feeding groups in Dallas into a Bavarian Illuminati satanic organization. So my whole life has been connected to this.
Gentlemen, we have called you together to inform you that we are going to overthrow the United States government. Do you still think that jet fuel brought down the World Trade Center? Does anybody else see a problem here? If the government has nothing to hide, why are they so afraid to answer a few questions? This story does not add up.